is that only 17% of borrowers go back to the same lender.
What's called the big red button that I hit.
Hey, remember that?
Right?
And, oh yeah, I love.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another edition of Laugh, Lend, and Eat the podcast. And man, today we have the man, the myth, the mobile patio, Michael Keller himself in the studio with us. Michael, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, Bobby. Thank you. And thank you for the introduction. Mobile patio is all of a sudden become an analogy, and I don't hate it. So thank you.
Yes, pretty soon you'll be like, hey, that guy that works for Mobile Patio, Michael Kelleher.
Yeah. Eventually I'll have my own branded Adirondack chairs, but for now it's just the background photo. That's
awesome. I did say it in the studio, but actually we're all virtual studios right now. So it's interesting. Right now we're actually redoing some of the studio in here to try to make it so that people can actually join me here live, because now we're getting back to in-person living. So I think I got that on my mind, and the Zoom calls going on at the same time. And so it's just kind of like one of those moments in life, right? So
yeah, shout out to your producer, because when you are back in person, if done correctly, those in-person ones do look cool.
Yeah, man, we were able to do one before the pandemic hit with Raquel Boris. I don't know if you know Raquel. She's like a social media branding queen, and it was a fun episode. You know what I mean? And then all of a sudden, boom, the pandemic hits. You're like, okay, we're locked down.
I saw she has like rack vision now, or she has some cool phrase going on. So
yeah, she's doing a lot with children and talking to them on her little podcast, and it's a really good like niche that she's found for herself. So we're pretty decent friends. You know what I mean? Supposed to actually do lunch with her next week, so we'll see. Anyway, this is about you, Michael, not about Raquel. Let's focus back on you, buddy, because look, I mean, right now, the cool thing about this interview, right, is I've been able to reverse the chairs and ask the questions this time, because a few weeks ago you had me on the other end. And so this time I get to ask the questions and you get to answer the questions. So hopefully you don't mind that too much, right? Because I know once you become a host, it's difficult to answer questions. I know that from my own experience.
Yeah, I feel like long-time listener, first-time caller on the radio. I've been watching and I'm excited to answer the questions that come.
What do you prefer? Do you like asking questions or do you like answering questions? What do you prefer?
I like answering them. I don't mind coming and answering questions. When I was asking them, I had to do research, and that ended up being anxiety, and it's just a lot easier to come and answer them.
So, I mean, do you prepare like hey, Fabi may ask me this, or Fabi, or you just like, boom, like, like me, I don't even care. Like people just ask me questions. I just, whatever's on my mind, I'll say it.
Yeah, that's the approach I had, but I did listen to one of the other podcasts I was on recently on the Mortflix channel, so I could just get comfortable with it. I do like to drink a coffee before as well. I prefer to be at high energy when I'm answering. So I did a little preparation.
Right?
I'm not at Josh Pitt's level, but
you did a pretty decent impression of Josh when I was on your show. I saw that back, and I thought that was pretty decent. I mean, you were pretty close to that level of him.
Yeah, he gets up there and he gets going, and it gets me going. And he got in early on the LinkedIn where it notifies. I get the push notifications every time he's on. So
wow.
I'll jump into it and I'll get motivated during the day.
Nice, yeah, because it's like, this is Fabi coming in right from DC, and we got the Michael Keller. It's like, Jesus Christ.
Today, folks, we are going to learn. We are going to laugh. We are going to lend. And folks, we are going to, and then it's like,
yeah. And the funny thing was, he had me on the show, and it was like I didn't even know this, but it was like hashtag 50+. I was like, thanks, Josh. Really appreciate that, brother.
The 50 over 50 list coming to a new magazine.
Yeah. I've been working on that for a while. So look, dude, I was going through your stuff. Obviously, I want to start off. You started in the business as a loan officer. I didn't even know that. I just thought you were this tech guy, but you were a loan officer.
Yeah. So I walked for a job interview, and everybody was having fun throwing koosh balls. I thought I was going to get in finance. I finance and accounting degree, and it was right around the end of the financial crisis, kind of before the real mortgage crisis, like right in the middle for a couple months. So I joined this company. They showed me a $10,000 check. They said you could be part of this. and it was a lot of late nights calling and a lot of almost there. Almost made President's Club. Had a lot of fun though with camaraderie. Like I learned a lot about a work office environment, specifically mortgage, the type of community, the type of talking, just that whole culture. I'm sure it's not entirely relevant today, but there's a lot of similarities just back then. And so I did that for a while. And you know what's funny? We were a company that sold Cesas and Ninas and anybody like over 700, I had to give off to somebody else. So getting it wasn't approved eligible. It was, or maybe the number 3. So the Fannie, it went
EA3, the expanded
EA3.
guidelines. Yep.
We got EA3 and we were saviors. And I never, even as a finance and accounting major, I think I just put so much time in during school. I put it more into the lunch break basketball and the koosh balls that I didn't reinvest into learning the back end points or anything like that. I just thought I was a hero getting them into AE3s, and I was trying to work my way up to become a manager so that if you became manager X amount of times, you could become regional manager, and management is where I wanted to go.
Right.
Then, everything happened and those programs were some of the first to go. I came out of it as somebody that was sort of fearless and cold calling. Like that was one of the big things I got out of it. And then I went into a retail shop locally where I learned to rebrand and rebuild my business, and where I speak a lot about just how darn hard it is for a 24-year-old to get into the mortgage industry.
Sure.
When it's not a refinance boom, like even right now, just to get people to trust you, especially if they know you. So like your orthodontist, right? Or somebody that saw you grow up, somebody that saw you in high school accidentally throw the rock through the window, right?
Right.
You want them to give you all of their financials. And it felt like the more successful they were, the less likely they were going to show you everything when barely anybody in town knows anything about them.
Yeah. Mike,
but
let me dive into this rabbit hole with you real quick. I like this.
Sure.
Trust is a huge word, right? I mean, especially for a 24-year-old. I mean, I think I was 27, 26 when I got in the business, right? So similar bracket. I had a 1-bedroom apartment that I was renting, right?
Yep.
And I'm trying to convince people that they should trust me with their at that point, I think a $300,000 loan was a jumbo loan, right? So whatever the loan amounts were back then, but I'm asking them to trust me, you know what I mean? A guy who's never owned a house yet, with the largest transaction of their life. I mean, how does a new guy overcome that? What'd you do?
I did a lot of groups, right? So I went to Rotary. I started my own networking group because I didn't really have the money to spend on BNI. So that's where I came up with this mix of what Rotary does, service above self, and then what BNI does, where there's one from each group. And by the end, we had 10 chapters. We had 140 people. We were giving about $50,000 a year to local Boys and Girls Club. ALS. I did a lot for ALS actually because of it. Things would spiral off of the event we would do once a year. But I would say just showing up. So, but you didn't have social media back then. So you had to earn the trust the old fashioned way.
Yeah.
I could go down the rabbit hole. It's a shame. I go back to Rotary and I'm still the youngest, 12 years later, and it's the same people as 12 years ago. I think the social media has lost that one charm about everybody showing up, getting together, having a coffee, and trusting the process that somewhere down the line, it's going to be better for you, service above self. But to answer your question, to build trust, I think it's showing up. And I do believe there's an area to show up on social media. But in your local community, the only way to earn trust back then was you had to be present at just mostly charity events or local, if they're going to be building things like the gardens were big back then before they are as popular as they are now. If you actually had passion about something and you showed up, that reliability builds trust. So
fast forward 12 years. I mean, obviously it's a huge different world we're in 2021, right? I mean, social media is such an impact on gaining trust. I mean, and people sometimes I do think, I do a lot of training on social media. I'm glad you're bringing this up. social media does build a virtual trust, doesn't it, for the individual that's out there?
Yeah. And I think if you can figure out how to, while you're doing it, if you have a goal of how you're physically going to run into the people that are watching or not even watching, but are aware. I
Mhm.
never look at the views anymore of how much people are watching.
You can't
because
do that. It'll drive you crazy.
Yeah, because I run into people all the time in this industry now at events that are, wow, you're killing it with mobile patio. Thank you for mobile patio. And I'm like, mathematically, there's no way this many people could possibly, it's not adding up. But branding wise, the physicality of seeing me after whatever, let the algorithm, I mean, let those geniuses do their algorithm getting in front of those people. But I think it's the same thing locally, that don't be afraid to mention just what your life is like in mortgage. So if you're walking the dog and you do a video,
Mhm.
somehow tie it back to mortgage.
Did you watch me do that a week ago?
No, I heard it on a Clubhouse, somebody else giving the recommendation. Did you do it?
I was doing that just seriously because Shay Robot challenged me on. She said you got to put your face on those videos. You can't use other people's faces. So the next morning, I'm like walking my dog. I'm like, okay, let's see what happens. Boom. You know what I mean? And all of a sudden, people are commenting on like, nice weather, or I love to start my morning with a walk. Also, it was kind of crazy.
Yeah, I think even like walking the dog, like making it a goal that I'm going to walk my dog down every street in my town. Right. And so people are following that, and you're talking about mortgages because when you run into them, you're now the expert on this entire like asset class in the entire town because you know it better than anybody because you walk by it. There's something to be said that they're not going to. This is what I told them on Clubhouse. I don't know the exact answer because I'm not the social media coach.
Right.
But I do know that it definitely brand wise resonates with people, and it starts the conversation off, like you said, with trust. Like, I trust that Bobby knows the house is better than anybody. And then when we have this conversation, I can trust you with asking you a couple mortgage questions, and it just gives you a better shot than the 23-year-old out of college that didn't have that opportunity.
Yeah. I will say, man, your wife puts up way more content on Facebook than you do.
Oh,
I was trolling you two this past week, and you still haven't accepted my friend request, FYI.
if it's Facebook, I did last night.
But yeah, I was like, wow, here's a guy, that has a social media following, but yet I see that his wife is like posting pictures of this adorable daughter that you got. My God, she's adorable, Michael. I mean, cute as anything. You know what I mean?
Yeah, the curls. I don't know if you saw the curls, but the
I
curls,
saw the picture of her, I guess, when she was younger, and she had some bunny ears on some I was like, this is amazing, just this picture, right? It was, anyway, that's a
yeah. No, Claire's got some swagger to her. She's got the gift of gab very early on, and so obviously that helps. But she has these curls and this walk with her elbow.
Nice.
She looks like she's just missing a fanny pack and a visor, and I'd say she'd be the 5th Golden Girl on the TV show.
Yeah, so, she got the New England attitude.
Yeah, she does when you don't feed her correctly. So yes.
So Clubhouse, I mean, you mentioned that name a few times, and I think you and I talked about it on your podcast, and it's still a topic of mine of great interest because a lot of people keep talking about it for some unknown reason, whether they hate it, they love it, they're curious by it, right? It seems like, I mean, obviously the big explosion that occurred a few months ago is over, right?
Yeah.
I think you gave a really good reason on why it's happening, the slow fall, right? Because people are out of the house again and that kind of stuff, and doing live visits rather than being on a podcast or even a whatever Clubhouse. But you're still actively engaged in Clubhouse.
Yeah, I think it's the number one, and you could tune into the mobile patio with Bobby and I to see why I think it's unfortunately deteriorating. I actually LinkedIn messaged the CEO the other day. I had enough where I offered to help, and I won't hear back, but I did offer. So it's the best place to get genuine R&D on any subject you want. Hands down. Just start a room, start the topic, and people will come and organically speak about it. And if you are interested in constantly learning more and more, like I am, and like others are, like you are, Fabi, in management, sales, and behavior, whatever you're passionate about, if you go in and you find a room or you start a room, there's no place and it's a fortune to actually spend for focus groups. There's no place you can get information better. So that's why I love it. So there's a couple rooms. Lately, the one there's Tuesday nights Talk Nerdy to Me. Logan
Okay.
gets on from Housing Wire. If you want to have any great conversation about where the housing is going, there's
Mhm.
just so many tidbits from him. And he gets so real because the questions are there. So it's rather than listening to a blog, they just get real fast because people really want to know. And Paul Tollefson does one Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays around 2:30 Eastern. And again, it's the one place that people get together during the day and organically talk about what technology is popular. It's a constant focus group.
What you're really talking about now, I hear it this time. I got it. So what you're talking about is kind of specializing to fit what you're looking for in the clubhouse, rather than what I did, which is probably the wrong way to go about it. Right? I see a name of a club, a room, or whatever it's called. And I go in, and some guy saying that I created Nike's logo for them when I was 22. Then I became a Buddhist. Now I'm a vegan, and peace, love, and understanding. And I'm like, dude, seriously, what are we doing here?
Yeah. I mean, that was awesome at first because then you'd be down this rabbit hole and you'd be like, oh my God, I'm talking to the CEO of Nike. Like, how does that happen?
Right.
But that doesn't happen anymore. I think that sort of went away, but that did legit.
In the beginning,
happen.
I remember that's how I met Brad Lee. Actually, he was doing a thing like Ask Brad a Question on Sunday morning with Jay Duran and his girlfriend Jenna. And so I'm texting Jenna on my phone saying, Jenna, this is amazing, and I love Brad. I didn't know it was this brilliant. So it was happening, but it didn't. It doesn't seem like it anymore.
No, I'll give you an example of how a loan officer would use it. Like in my hometown, we're trying to pass a new mega elementary school. So we're a nice town, small town on the water. Everybody likes the fact there's 3 schools, except you can't put anything up on the wall. Couldn't put this sign behind me here because of the asbestos, right? They're 100-year-old.
Okay.
So they want to put in a new school, but that's going to be $100 million, 35, whatever. 40% is matched by the town. How it goes through, will it go through the town meeting? Are they able to get through special interest, 2.5 override? If you started a clubhouse group around that particular subject and you just listened and poked the bear, you would get all the sides so that you could then know how to talk about it as an expert in your town. The number one topic that every mother talks about in town. And I find in this millennial world, the mothers move the property lately. That's what I've been seeing. So
but in order to get the townsfolk to that room in Clubhouse, you'd have to get that information to those townsfolk, I would imagine, right? I mean, they're not going to just say, hey, I'm going to go check out Clubhouse, see if they're talking about my school development here, right? Because, I mean,
yeah, no,
I live in DC. I mean, I know it wouldn't happen here.
You're right. Something has to click, right? But if you were focused on the town and you could figure out who on the town's on Clubhouse and get them going, or put it on Facebook, we're going to have a talk tonight about it, and just maybe on the town Facebook group say we're going to get on here and listen.
Yeah.
Once in the town, because I think that's where the future is going. Is one, it's all mobile everything.
Mm-hmm.
2 is proximity. So it's how can you get it from digital, but then associate yourself with somebody local. And then something tells me it's going to be connections. So I want to work with the realtor that can get my child into the preschool with the wait list, right? Like that's like, we grew up in such a culture of like having to wait in line to get into a bar. And if you knew people, you go, or had the money, you could get into the other line. And the common line never moved, but the other line, because the other people just keep going in the fast line. And I think there's something about being the loan officer, not that offers the best advice on mortgages, but obviously being that person. Plus you are tuned in where there's only 12 people allowed. And it became much more, maybe it was more obvious during COVID because restrictions on how many people could get in.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe the class where the woman plays the guitar to Claire only has 10 people.
Right.
You never get into it, right? But you heard that loan officer has the connections, can get you in. Well, sounds like that loan officer, if I work with them, is going to make my life a lot easier in town for the next 3 or 4 years.
So you're actually talking about networking in Clubhouse.
I'd say forget Clubhouse. I just think loan officers that network around family environments. Like where do we bring the kids need to go places more than they used to. I used to play in the backyard.
Yeah.
The the kids now need to be at places that you need to
Kids,
sign them
do
up
kids
for.
play anymore? I mean, does Claire? I mean, I'm assuming your daughter's name is Claire, right? So
Yes.
I mean, is she active? Is she playing? Because I mean,
She-
my
she-
kids never played outside.
She plays, but I imagine when she's at the age where my parents just let me roam, I don't see as many of the kids in my parents' neighborhood running through the backyards,
Yeah,
jumping fences the way we did. And if they do, they're doing it about 5 years later than we did.
yeah.
I feel like us, we're a little bit more curmudgeon these days. Like, why is somebody running through my yard? Huh? Like, I put a lot of time into those daisies. That's my universal sign for a
love that.
nosy neighbor.
Now I know why you got the Progress in Lending 2020 Thought Leader Award. Now this makes sense. That little curmudgeon daisy sign you just made.
Yeah.
That's amazing thought leadership right there. So I got to bring that up now. So you got a Progress in Lending 2020 last year, right?
Yep.
Thought Leadership Award, which is amazing. Congratulations, seriously. Right.
Thank you. Thank you.
I mean, when they make those kind of announcements, I mean, how does that make you feel at that moment? I mean, it's got to be kind of, I don't know. I've never had one, right?
I mean, yeah, I'm proud. I haven't figured out how to get it into a conversation like on a Thanksgiving or 4th of July with the family. Like, hey, anybody see the Progress in Lending article? But no, I mean, I am extremely proud of it. I am so thankful. I do think it's definitely rewarding, and it has a lot to do with how much time that I've put into, whether it's Clubhouse today or just attending conferences in the past. I have put a lot of time into this industry on a subject that is often fought against because it is so new and disruptive. And I think it's fine. And at certain points I get a breakthrough. Somebody recognizes it and rewards it, but I believe they're rewarding a lot of the hard work and a lot of the 30,000 foot view of what I'm doing and what I'm contributing. And Progress in Lending has been great. And really, I've gone to many of their events at conferences over the years. I've been a huge fan of them and seen them give out many awards. And it's just really cool to be recognized. And when I was a loan officer, I never saw the industry higher than my zip code.
Sure.
So I would have never thought I would get here. And that's
a great
why
way to put it.
yeah.
Because obviously, look, I mean, when you're a loan officer, you are tangled up in the transaction, and so to look outside and see a world beyond that's actually moving the whole industry forward, the people that are creating apps, the people who are creating different ways of getting a loan to closing, different ways to get people e-signing. I mean, all these little things that happen just didn't happen magically. It was people working very diligently to move that needle forward, I guess, right?
Yeah, and I don't think you could do it without the conferences. I think you need some sort of human interaction at some point to keep it going, to reinforce that it's working. Or you need to go visit your clients across the country, and I've done both. So you need to feel like you've traveled outside of your zip code. Like that's a big thing I say to my own team and to people getting in the industry. If you want to really be impactful in the mortgage industry, if you want to be Progress 2020 Innovator of the Year, you have to be prepared to travel, because how they handle mortgages in places like Lubbock, Texas are different than Atlanta, Georgia,
Absolutely.
which are different than Washington, D.C. And those leaders will appreciate that you visited their area, their geographic, and that you've worked with peers in that area. Or they'll question, maybe sometimes, are you just an expert here? Are you just an expert there? And they have the right to question that, because the industry really isn't that big. You just need to hustle and get on a plane and visit the people that are leading each region.
Yeah, I agree with that. So when you talk about disruption, I mean, look, personally myself, I wrote an article about this. I'm tired of the word disruption. I feel like I've been disrupted so much in the last 24 months. I don't want to be disrupted anymore. Right? Now I sound like a curmudgeon, right? I got to
little bit. Too bad.
Just leave me alone already. I'm done. I'm out of here. Stop recording. Anyway.
No, I know you. I know. I mean, I live this. Yes, I hear what you're saying.
At a certain point, are we just creating? I mean, is it just advancements that are occurring, or is it really like to me, Thomas Edison was disruptive. We were in the dark. We were smelling fish oil or whatever. You know what I mean? And all of a sudden he says, "Hey, I got a better light bulb." Right? That was disruptive. I mean, is that kind of disruption that we're talking about, or is it, hey, we have a new way of taking a loan app? What are we talking about?
I think it's little micro disruptions that lead to a big behavioral story of how you have to look at it as a loan officer. If you're a loan officer and you want to retire in 8 years, then I don't think you have to worry about disruption. But if you want to be working till you're 55 years old, that's a different thought process than somebody in the year 2000, because it's proven they would have been just fine till 55, because
Right.
we've gotten a lot of, like you said, micro disruptions, but we really haven't changed.
Mm-hmm.
But I think with Boyle's Law, I for the next 8 years, you're fine. Maybe for the next 15, but as you go over it with people using your total cost analysis or whatever else you're using, you're asking them when they want to retire, when they want to get out of debt. It's kind of naive not to ask yourself, are you going to be a loan officer in 20 years? If not, what are you going to do? Sell fishing lures or just play it by ear? Because you ask your clients not to play it by ear.
Mm-hmm.
See, this is, I guess when I get disruptive, it's like when I kind of get in this mode where I'm asking tough questions that it's just easier not to get into. So,
but I think they're needed. I think those kind of questions need to be asked. They need to be masterminded by a bunch of different people, right? Because you have different thoughts coming into it. From my vantage point, right, is like, how much does a loan officer really absorb what a guy like Michael Keller is asking them to absorb, versus how much does Fabi absorb what Michael Keller is asking him to absorb, right? Because I'm looking at it as a leader that has multiple branches throughout the market, whereas a loan officer is looking at a transaction.
yeah, I don't think you have to. Somebody like myself is doing it with passion, right? So I'm not selling a class. So with me, you just have to listen and understand that this is somebody that created the mobile app in the mortgage space. Didn't exist before I came up with it, right? Average person looked at their phone 18 minutes. Now it just seems normal, like 4 hours, 35 minutes. 71% of Generation Z communicates inside of a native app, not on their phone. 71% of the communication of the next buying that's going to keep this market going, that is going to keep you from retiring in 10 years, it only communicates in mobile apps, right? So it's this message that I'm giving. You can take little parts and just keep absorbing. Just like I listen to many different resources, many different podcasts, like your own, Fabi, where if I just get one or two tidbits over and over and over again, it gets absorbed. So I don't think, look, I'd love for you to listen and purchase our tech products, right? Or our consulting. The answer to that question would be no. I don't think it's fair to say a loan officer should have to listen and purchase, or you should have to listen and purchase, or anybody that has a disruptive thought, you should have to go buy their software.
Right.
That you should be getting tired of, because you have to work on margin compression.
Well, not only that, but I mean, I just think that sometimes, I think I'm not the first one saying this, most lenders have what we call the tech stack.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And I can name the companies, you probably know them already, right? A, B, C, D, boom, boom, right? And we check the box and we move on as leaders, right? And now we're hoping that our loan officers use it. Like, hey, will they really use it? Then we realize, oh my God, they can't, or they're not. So now we need to automate it. So now I need another tech piece to automate what the loan officers aren't doing, right? I need to be able to turn that on. I need to be able to do a campaign drip. I need to do the milestone movements automatically, because if they don't enter the stuff in, then I lose all that. What I'm getting at is your app now, which is what I want to obviously get into, right, is the Easy Mortgage app, right?
Yep.
And your app is designed to do exactly what?
It sits on top of all of the frustration you just talked about. And this is this is the communication piece. The only communication piece that goes the entire cycle, listening to all that tech stack and telling the person who Face IDs in. And what differentiates us is whoever it is, not just loan officers. We want to bring in the processor, the loan officer assistant, the underwriter. The consumer looks at the team and says, I'm working with the team. So as this document comes in, right, you can put it, the consumer can put the document into the phone. The document can then go into the LOS, but other people can log in and say, oh, where'd that come from? Did it come from my point of sale? Did it come from Tommy brought it in, gave it to the processor who uploaded it here? I think if everybody can pull it out, Face ID in, and see that entire tech stack and where that document and where that is,
Mm-hmm.
but it's all about communication. So it's not about just logging in and single signing in and having all the stuff available in one portal. It has to start with communication. So when somebody logs in, they should become a better employee for the experience of logging in than they were if they didn't log in or before they logged in. They should know exactly what they're doing. Velocify says 50% of a loan officer's day is spent deciding what not to do.
Mm.
So if you have somebody logging in to an interface that tells you what the next best move should be, that communication level is what we're solving today.
So what you're telling me basically is a loan officer gets your app, the Easy Mortgage app, right? And obviously as a company, or let me ask you a question. Is it companies or loan officers or both? Like if I'm a loan officer, I can just get it myself if I needed to, right?
It's companies, but we are the most nimble in the fact that if a branch came and the enterprise was willing to work with us, it's the only solution in the market a branch could afford today.
Okay. Yeah, that's important to know that. Okay. So they get the app. Now, basically, you're now configured. Is that the right word? Because I'm not a tech guy, right? So I'm sorry. I would not be up for the Progress in Lending Award. I assure you that much. Maybe the most connected. That's about as good as I get, or 50 over 50, like you mentioned. But the tech award. I mean, the are they now like integrated with the LOS, or what is the right word that I'm looking for?
Yeah, it's completely customized, and it has the communication feature is the ability to message, but also have a home feed, like a Facebook feed or an Instagram feed that you can plug your vendors into or your LOS, and you can choose any trigger for any message for any user. So if you want branch managers to get messages about how they run their branch from a P&L perspective or from a 4506T, or you find a key performance that you guys are doing bad on and you want to fix that, you can just fix the levers and their home feeds will communicate so they don't decide what not to do. They can be told what to do better. And again, it's going to come down to communication. When you Google any part of the mortgage process externally or internally, or a lot of focus groups internally, if you go beyond the loan officer, you'll find there's some secret problem with communication. And our solution solves it because everything can be put in how they are in their apps. 92% of the time they're on their phone, which is in a home feed format. And you can do hashtags. So you could do hashtag rate lock reminder, and it would do, you could organize it by all the rate lock reminders. So I think what's cool is the companies that start to not just get this solution, but have some fun with it. I mean, literally laugh, maybe have fun with it and eat, right? And a little hybrid of yours, they can make it a better experience for everybody that works for their company. And I don't know many other softwares out there that bring in the culture, the community, all through solving just for communication. And if we were known as one thing in the industry, it would be the #1 communication tool that if you spent the invested time to customize for yourself, would make it a better place to work than anywhere else.
So let me ask you a question.
Or a better place to do business with than anywhere else.
What made you come up with this app? Look, I mean, I've been in the business 28 years, right? I came up with one idea a couple of years ago that my buddy and I designed, and then I got too busy. It's a true story. It's a real story, right? A couple of years later, I actually saw somebody else doing what I had designed on an app. Kicked myself in the ass, moved on, right? You come up with an idea, you actually executed it. Where did the idea germinate from?
I had the 501c that I was having fun with. You know, I had 12 chapters, 100 people. I wanted to create a communication app for that. And I consulted with some people, and they said, why don't you just do what you know better and try and create an app for the mortgage industry? And so we were a brokerage with one processor during the TRID piece. So our processor was overworked. Things were changing every week. New TRID would come out. Somebody would have to sign it. And the problem was everybody we worked with had refinanced before on fast and easies, stated incomes before the crisis. So they would say this was not Mike, I trusted you as a 25-year-old, but the fact that you're asking for my tax returns again, this has to stop, or I'm going to go back to my older person. This is not how we do business. And I said, no, this is how it processor, will you please talk to him, tell him like this is it? And because once they go to the other place, it's not about me being right anymore from a sales perspective, right? I now have to compete against somebody that's going to lower their rate, and I've already lost them after all the work I just put in.
Right.
So there had to be a second voice. And when processor Jim couldn't get in touch with them, and then it's me calling 3 times in a row, and they're just not. I said, can there be some? We need another processor. We just need another voice. So we came up with this idea to lift the cloak of mystery behind the mortgage transaction, a consumer-facing product that could be the second voice needed to keep people peaceful as things were changing, and maybe the goalpost was moving a little bit as the CFPB on a limb were just putting out new rules. And then we said, look, if we're going to do this, if we're going to spend the time, like you said, it has to be an app. Or I kind of said it in my head. I wanted to be bold and brave, and I said, if I'm going to get into this, I'm going to go big. I'm going to do an app. And almost because of being green behind the ears, I didn't know any other way from 0 to 100. So I'm going to go in on 100. I cold called at night. Chip Simpkins, Old Virginia Mortgage, was the first one to verbally say he was in. And then Chip Poli, I guess the chips fell where they may. Chip Poli from Poli Mortgage was our first real client. That's who taught us that we had to integrate with Encompass. And then it's just been 8 years of millions of loans going through our system to learn that there's hundreds and hundreds and actually probably thousands of different ways people interact with a mortgage company. And so it's just been fine tuning that. And I don't think the communication software, so now it's a middleware that just communicates better. We realized it had to be more than just the customer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Now, is it white label for the mortgage company so they can actually just customize it for their own name and everything, I guess?
Yeah, you would have a better app than the Rocket Mortgage that everybody could log into. Email is the identifier, so it searches your entire database for the email, and that determines if they're a realtor, borrower, loan officer assistant, processor. You can log in, and the consumers track their way through the mortgage. The most popular item right now is to be able to generate pre-qualifications and pre-approvals.
Okay.
Both of them. Exactly how the lender does it today. So whatever you're using today, and then it totally integrates with the LOS. You can preset them so that your loan officers don't get fatigued, so realtors don't feel awkward asking over and over and over again, and consumers can actually physically see it. I think the number one part of our software and other softwares going forward, but I would challenge, I don't know the other softwares I hear, but I don't believe it's possibly better than the one we have today in the ability to just generate the pre-approval, generate the pre-qual. We've labeled it the barbecue saver for years because I'm hot right now. I remember sitting in a car at 85 degrees in a barbecue, opening my laptop, sweating, writing up a pre-approval because I can't lose that realtor, right? Or leaving a barbecue where everybody's there and questioning, like, what is going on here? But you needed to do it because you need to be back to what we talked about before. Reliable show up to build trust. So now you can just do it while you're flipping burgers.
Wow. So it is integrated with the LOS. Now, let me ask you a question. With all this technology I keep hearing about and different POSs and stuff, is the LOS really becoming more of just a processing tool and not really a loan origination software?
Yeah, well, it's a compliance tool. But it also is the baseline, I think, so you can negotiate throughout the future.
Okay.
Otherwise, you're married to your POS forever. Like, POSs just came out. But who's to say they're more nimble than an LOS? So who's to say in 2 years one can't come out that's faster, cheaper, better? Well, now you can go to your present one and say, we're going to switch over. And we can do it pretty easy because we're keeping the same LOS, right?
I forgot who was telling me this, but they're saying that the rapid pace that we're moving in right now, we are learning at the pace of 200 years every 5 years or something. It was something like, it was really like when you really think about what we've learned since 2016, 2021, I mean, it would really boggle the mind, like all the things we now know. You know what I mean, compared to
Yeah.
what we didn't know 5 years ago.
And a lot of it's like outsourcing too. Like I think you're going to see a lot more outsourcing than the industry was comfortable with. You're going to do it to create extra capital to either lower your rate or make more of these funnel click conversion type experiences. So you need a baseline, I guess, in all of this. And I think the LOS has been a comfortable baseline. Some of the point of sales you'll see get into the LOS, but you know it better than anybody, Fabi, and the listeners probably know it. We're a very cyclical market. So all the tech you see today has gone during an 8-year experience where outside of 18, things were hot. People were paying their bills on time. Everything's going great. And maybe it stays that way for another 12, 15 years, but at some point, there'll be some retraction. And at that point, I think, especially in the point of sale and LOS space, you'll see some dominoes fall and some big players take a large part of the industry. So, yeah, I mean, the two biggest players are in the LOS game, like Black Knight and ICE Technology, right? So you have to figure they're there to stay. They're going to constantly have people disrupting. And I think when you see point of sales, that'll be a big one. Is the point of sale able to get a lender like yourself comfortable enough to truly do all of their compliance like we just talked about, to handle HMDA, URLA, and everything that happens? Or do you just want to, if it's not broke, if you're not paying fines, don't try and fix it?
I definitely think that the newer companies that are coming out, that I'm seeing, the new lenders and the hey, you know what I mean? Look, I mean, I just turned 54 a few days ago, right? So I'm on the I'm on the upper end of the spectrum of the average age of the mortgage lender now, right? Definitely the newer generation of the mortgage lenders, the different mindsets that they have. I definitely think there is going to be technology that's going to need to be faster and more adaptive. And I also like to use the word intuitive, because I see intuition being really the driving force of all technology in almost any industry, but more so in our industry. Because to know what you're going to be doing, Michael, based on some algorithm that you're feeding into the internet, right? And me being able to say, hey, Michael, should we talk about refinancing or buying a new home for you? And you're saying, man, I was just thinking about that 2 weeks ago. How'd you know? That kind of stuff.
Yeah, I saw a great webinar on the industry is not prepared. The biggest blind spot of the industry as lenders and as originators, the one piece they're not prepared for is early engagement. As more and more software comes out that you're talking about, in unprecedented, so it's not like a bad thing, it's just never been done before. And you actually have data that shows that Fabi's going to buy a home in 170 weeks. How much time do you want to invest in Fabi for the next 170 weeks? How nervous are you that you're going to nurture them for 140 and then lose out in the last 30 weeks, right? Again, more software that's going to have to be purchased by lenders because of a problem created because of other software saying we can identify them earlier and earlier. And that's where another place where easy mortgage apps is invaluable and mobile apps are invaluable. You have to start learning that people's lives are not in front of computers. They're in front of phones, right? 98% of the time, they have to have a phone in front of them or they get nervous. Phones to me, again, as a dad, mean playground, meaning any chance I get where I can put in a little extra work, maybe my wife could be watching, not the playground, but let's say, wherever it is, walk into the coffee machine. You're down here and then you're distracted. You're cooking, then you're distracted. You're doing this, then you're distracted. If you don't have an app and you expect this consumer to type distracted, remember your website address to help you close my loan and continue to do this over 170 weeks or 40 weeks later to pick it back up and be like, oh, Fabi's. Oh, I know Fabi's.
Sure.
www.fabi's laugh, lend, and eat / best loan officer in Atlanta and DC / been around for 50 years / top. No, that's, as we say, that's banana land. They just need to hit your app because they know that's where to go and pick back up on the story where they left off. And they can only do that in apps. And the #1 lender in the country spent, I think, $200 million on mobile app advertisement over the last 3 years. And Zillow has spent over $100 million on mobile app advertisement. That means somebody is spending millions of dollars to tell them it's okay to spend $300 million on mobile app advertisement. So I think everybody can just read between the lines, peel back the tea leaves and say, I think it's okay to get an app because there's a multi-million-dollar bet here that the top companies think it's already a good play. We should probably get one as well. And I think that's why they are doing it. The 170-week journey, they need to know where to go on your phone when they haven't talked to you in 28 weeks.
Yeah, that's a good connection there. I like that. That actually makes a whole lot of logical sense in my mind. And I mean, I think that when you can get through a dense guy like me and make sense, you've done your job.
The advice I get on Clubhouse from mentors is stop being so logical, Mike. So that's where I have to stop, especially on the mobile app space. To me, it's logical to get one. It's logical to not just have an app, but constantly push your vendor hours and hours. Like, how can we do this better? How can we push, learn? But it's not always logical in tech. I think, I was teaching at an MBA program at Boston College, and they wanted me to do like pitch. Kid came up to me, asked me about entrepreneurship, and I said, well, the first 8 years, right, it's a grind. Like we were just talking about, it's a grind. You're going against the grain because you have an idea you believe in. You have to be able to sell it. You have to be able to have the right process in place. You have to have the right people surrounding you. It's just going to be a lot of, long nights.
Yeah.
Not going to feel very rewarding all the time. It's just a constant. It's just so hard. He's like, wow. He goes, and then what happens after that 8 years? And I was like, I have no clue.
I'll tell you next.
Doing it.
Hey, real quick, we're winding this thing down. We got about 2 minutes left.
Yeah.
I got to ask you, man, since you're part of that app that you designed, Easy Mortgage app, right?
Yep.
Is there a part of Michael Keller's personality in that app?
I'd like to think there is. You just can't develop at the speed that the great ideas, come out at. So I think what makes an app so special and why I would never build my own app if I was a lender is you want an app already done so that you can build the personality on top of it.
Okay.
So if you went to us, right, Easy Mortgage apps, and you purchased the app, then with all of the communication, push notifications, home feed, you could tell a story that matches your personality, and you could really create the most beautiful journey because it's already there for you to the canvas is already there for you to paint on top of. A lot of what I've done is just try to get this out there. Haven't really had a chance to get around to painting, but yeah, I mean, there's some of my person. I wouldn't say the app is bumpy and doesn't tell jokes.
All right. Well, look, Michael, thank you so much for coming on Laugh, Lend, and Eat and answering our questions for us today, because I felt like it was good for me to get this side of the chair back. And I wish you all the success, man, on Easy Mortgage app. Maybe I will see you on Clubhouse one night. I don't know if I can stay awake that late. Maybe I can do an afternoon with you somewhere and we can check it out together.
Yeah, I'll send you an invite. And thank you again. And the mobile Theo appreciates Laugh, Lend, and Eat.
Thank you so much, Michael. Have a great day, brother.
You too. Thank you. Thank you.
We hope you enjoyed this edition of Laugh, Lend, and Eat, the podcast. You can now enjoy Fabi's article, Laugh, Lend, and Eat, featured in the Vision magazine. Please be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, where each month we are giving away some swag for a lucky listener to show off. Thank you to our sponsors for their continued support, First Option Mortgage and One Good One Recruiting. And remember, you have to be something, so be kind.